And welcome back to VMworld Live. I'm John Troyer. We're here live in Copenhagen at VMworld 2010. For our next segment, I have got two guests from EMC. Chris Carrier, who's a Director of Marketing in VMware Alliance at EMC, and Mukesh Sharma, who's Director of the Alliances. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having us here.
So, VMworld, this is one of the biggest VMworlds ever in Europe, and we've had a lot of, it's been interesting this year between EMC World and then through VMworld San Francisco and now Copenhagen. Been talking a lot, EMC and VMware, talking a lot about this journey to the cloud. It seems like a model that's very effective in describing where people are, and it seems to work with, people seem to understand it. So Chris, can you talk a little bit about how EMC is working with customers, where they are at their whatever stage they're at, and how to accelerate them along?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's interesting. What we found is when we start talking to customers about the benefit of the cloud, benefit of the private cloud, and so forth, they understand it, they get it, and they think it's something to aspire to. But, you know, where we've really made headway, especially with EMC working alongside VMware to help accelerate the customers, is showing them how there are benefits along the way. So every step of their journey, to get them to the next step, they seek benefits, they get benefits right away, and it really helps them along. So what we're doing at the event here this week, by the way, great show, I have to commend you guys. You blew your numbers out of the water again, it's fantastic. And we're seeing the customers stream through our booth, and what they're really interested in is, what are all the features and how do you integrate with VMware to really help you along the journey? So we've filled up the booth with all kinds of demonstrations, showing them, you know, it's some advanced features that we have today, some advanced features that we haven't released yet. That's, you know, showing them some kind of a demo and where the technology is going, and they're really taking to it.
You guys even have hands-on labs in the booth.
We do. We have an additional space, so they can go beyond just seeing the demo, but they can actually try it, and they can get their hands on it and try it themselves. You know, and the customers love it. We've had some customers stay for an hour and a half, actually sitting down and trying all of the new toys and all of the trinkets, and they love it.
So as the people you're talking to, I mean, at the beginning stage, it's a lot about cost and server consolidation, and then as you get into the further phases, it's more about agility and flexibility. Is that some of the message that you're giving to people? Yeah,
it's very consistent. You know, the first phase that we're seeing, really, it's about cost savings, and that's what they want. You know, they want to reduce their capital expense, they want to reduce their operational expense. So we give them, you know, functionality to do that, things like deduplication. You know, very much ease of use tools, management integrations with VMware, so that now if they need to deploy a new service or deploy a new server, they can do it from one location, and they're very comfortable with that location, be it the VMware administrator or the storage administrator and the tasks that they're trying to do. You know, so as we accelerate through the second phase, that's when the customers really want to start going beyond just, you know, the typical applications or the IT-owned applications, and it really starts going into the business lines and what the business lines want, mission-critical applications, things that are really running the core of their business itself. So they have to start looking at other things like not just ease of use and expenses, because those are still important and it carries on, but, you know, high performance, guaranteed service level agreements. It's interesting, you know, service level agreements don't change from a physical world to a virtual world. They stay the same. What people aren't comfortable with is, well, how do I ensure that same service level in a virtual world? So we have ways for them to do that, and ways for the infrastructure work together with the VMware environment to make that happen. You know, and then kind of the aspirations they have is to keep accelerating that so they can virtualize as much as possible, and then have a lot of automation and control, and we kind of call that the third phase of the journey, where it's kind of a true IT as a service. You know, and that's what they're looking on. They're looking at agility, you know, and they're looking at just automation control, security, that sort of thing. You know, and I'm hearing great things.
Oh, great. We too, we're all having a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Mukesh, can you talk a little bit about the market here in Europe, what we're seeing with customers in Europe? I mean, I'm more familiar with the American market, maybe contrast it there, or where people are on their journey, and what you guys are doing to help.
Yeah, so the first thing I think really noticed here is it's a real cross-section of types of profiles that have come to VMware, which is great. I think, you know, we've got C-level audience, we've got the IT administrators, and also people from different silos, you know, from security, from networking, from storage. Whereas I think in the past you tend to see the kind of the real virtualization guys, right, who really want to put it. So that really demonstrates that virtualization has become pervasive, right, across the whole environment, and it's kind of encouraging organizations to kind of work together. And in terms of the market, I mean, it's really quite interesting. I was speaking to one of my colleagues earlier on, who's brought 57 people from Morocco, right? So that's quite an investment, right? Now, typically you tend to think it's the more mature countries or developed countries which have a huge interest in virtualization, especially in the Nordics or Germany and the UK. But what I'm seeing definitely is, some of the emerging countries in South Africa, Eastern Europe, have got presence here. And what they're looking to really do is kind of leapfrog some of the stepping stones that mature companies have gone through. So yeah, so I think from a market landscape perspective, you kind of think that maybe Europe's a little bit behind. I think in some cases it is, in others it's not. They're still looking to address the same challenges, right? So I think the challenges are pretty consistent, moving along those 3 steps of the journey. Maybe the approach is slightly different, right? It's more partner-centric here. So partners tend to add a bit more value to the overall proposition and the services.
So when you say leapfrog,
Yeah.
kind of like some of the excuse me. Sorry. Like some of the mobile phones.
Absolutely.
Where they went straight from landline. They skipped a lot of the landline, went straight to mobile phones. Are we seeing that with virtualization?
Absolutely. So one of the things I've seen more recently in Eastern Europe in particular, right, is where customers are looking to build out new data centers, for example, in Bulgaria on a call center, right? And they're thinking, okay, do I really need to go through the stepping stones and the pains that organizations have gone through in the past? If I've got this new integrated infrastructure, maybe like a vBlock or a VCE architecture, I can put that down into my infrastructure and virtualize quickly and start virtualizing from day one, rather than having to go from this physical to virtual environment. So we're definitely seeing that more and more.
For both of you, what do you see as some of the characteristics of a successful customer? Are successful customers the ones that have mature process? Is it about the attitude of the CIO? Is it about technical know-how? What's the right mix?
So what I've seen is, it's a little bit of everything. I think it's the customers that look at the benefits of what they're doing in some areas and try to think, hey, how can I gain those main benefits but reduce my risk, but yet they're willing to take that step, if that makes any sense. A good example.
Risk aware, but not too cautious.
Exactly. A perfect example is I heard about this one customer who was looking at. He owned a high-tier application. It was really a business-critical app, and he saw how the lower Tier 2, Tier 3 applications were actually getting better service levels than what he was. And when he approached them and said, hey, what's going on here? How can I get that? And they said, oh, well, those are the applications that we've already virtualized and put on VMware. So he said, all right, that's it. We're doing this, because I want to see that. I want to reap those benefits. So to me, that's one of the characteristics of showing success. Maybe you're a little cautious, but you say, that's what I need, that's what I want. I'm going to take those steps and actually get it done.
Yeah, I think to that point, definitely echo what Chris is saying. I think it's pretty much getting all the ticks in the boxes, right? From the OpEx, from the CapEx, from satisfying all the users in the data center. But I think as virtualization grows outside of the traditional data center, and especially when you look at things like virtual desktops, right? So success is also on user acceptability, right? Is a virtual desktop, giving me the opportunity to run my applications and workload just as I would do in a physical environment, right? Is that psychological kind of break as well. So I think as we go forward and as virtualization spreads out into the users, I think that's another key criteria for success. So speaking to customers who've moved into a kind of virtual desktop environment, many of them say, yeah, absolutely, it does exactly what it was supposed to, does exactly what it was supposed to do in a tin, and the users are happy. So I think that's another critical criteria as well.
Do you think, using the word cloud, do you think people understand the concept? Are there misconceptions about the cloud that you're dealing with?
I don't think it's misconceptions so much as many definitions of cloud, and people always think of cloud differently. And it's tough to tell somebody, well, their definition is wrong, because their definition is right, because there's so many definitions of it. So the approach we've taken when we start talking to the customers and to these organizations that want to go there is, okay, first let's talk about what we mean by cloud. Tell me what you mean by cloud, but more importantly, what do you want to get out of it?
Sure, it's about your business objectives. Let's
Right.
always start with that.
And then we level set, and they're very comfortable with that once we level set.
Yeah, in some ways, I think cloud is where we're going. We can call it whatever we can call it whatever we want to once we get there, but we're using that as a convenient term now.
Exactly, exactly.
In terms of the European market, are you working with a mix of smaller customers? Often that's kind of the stereotype, although there's certainly a global. It's a complicated multinational footprint, and there's certainly a lot of global accounts here.
Absolutely, it's a real cross section. I think each country has a splattering of large global brands, global names, and it kind of depends on the geography and location, right? So one of the great things that we're pushing forward, and especially with the private cloud message, it's about hiding the complexity from the customer, right? So it's not exclusively for a large FTSE 100 organization, right? Cloud is pervasive. It can help just as much as a 5-man band as it is for a 100,000 user organization. And what we're seeing is that kind of message is spreading across, and certainly through the virtualization story. So I think what's interesting is that certain sectors have been quite hot, right? In financial services, public sector, and so forth. But the other thing is that it's kind of spreading into the smaller organizations. So we're having some pretty serious discussions around moving whole infrastructure from, like a 20-man organization into a private cloud environment, because they've got less legacy, a less decision-making process to go through. So I think it's pretty much across the board.
Great. Well, Chris Carrier, Mukesh Sharma from EMC, thanks for joining us here at VMworld Live.
Thanks for having us, John.
Thank you, John.